I'm ever so pleased with the work that we've done on the Contact version of F9 Nautilus. Let's go and see it in action right now. Let me show you around the GUI in Logic. This center section has an output meter, a gain control, and a stereo width control. Also at the bottom is pitch bends. So normally these will be set to 2 to give you those standard pitch bends. But you can set that all the way to an octave. The other element in this center section is the F9 logo. This is actually an overdrive control. So just mouse up on it and you'll see you'll get this kind of nice glowing control around the edge of it. Now, let's look at the pitch section, and this big knob instability will apply a stereo wow and flutter-like effect. Fine-tune knob obviously allows fine-tuning 50 cents in either direction. Under this, we have the vibrato rate. So most of the patches, the mod wheel will head to the vibrato. Here you can control the vibrato rate and you can go right up. Or you can bring it right down so it gets quite spooky. But I often find that I want the mod wheel to control filter cutoff. This button up here where it says MW to fill, the vibrato is then removed from the pitch section internally inside of Contact. And now you can control how much the mod wheel will bring the filter down. Here I've drawn some into the MIDI part. So with this single little switch up here, you get to decide what the mod wheel is actually doing. The glide switch here will turn any patch monophonic and also connect a legato and portamento time, which you have control of with this knob here. For example, let's turn it off and listen to this 808. Now if I turn it on and apply some glide time, this is great for things like plucks as it allows you to make really engaging lead patches. So for example, let's take this part where I've done some legato playing, but I've not actually turned the glide on yet. Now let's turn it on and apply a little bit of time to it. And the time parameter will actually go quite long, so it can get into silly territory. Then we come to an amp envelope, standard ADSR attack decay sustain and release controls, as well as a velocity response control here, and a drive control. Now this is similar to the kind of way that you can overdrive an analog filter on a modular synth. You basically get to kind of amp a little bit further into the filter so you get some crunch. Now let's have a look at the filter section. We can switch the response of the filter to between 12 dB per octave and 24 dB per octave. Here's the filter in 12 dB mode. And now in 24 dB per octave. And a familiar filter envelope that we can use to control the main cutoff. It's got an amount slider and a velocity response slider too. Now, one important thing here, the velocity control, the actual slider to the right of the envelope, controls how the velocity responds not only to the envelope, but the main filter cutoff as well. So in other words, if you got this all the way down, this velocity control doesn't just control the envelope amount, it controls the velocity response of the filter too. And you can really hear that at high filter Q settings. Now let's move on to the fun stuff. It's a little known fact that there is a fully SSL modeled EQ built into Kontakt. Similar to SSL EQs, you can turn the low shelf and high shelf filters into peak mode. Just click on the word peak. When it's orange, that is a peak filter. Now, obviously, some EQ settings can get quite pokey, and that's why we've got a compressor and a limiter in line. You've got basic gain reduction metering here, quite a lot of controls on the compressor, but they're ever so handy. And this bite control will add or take away a little bit of front, particularly to percussive sounds. Let me show you that on one of the drum kits. And we've got a quick and dirty output limiter set on this. Now, this is a maximizing limiter, so as you bring the threshold down, it's going to get loud. That's why the ceiling control is there to allow you to regain afterwards. So as you can hear with the interplay between these controls, there is an awful lot of power to really abuse these sounds. We have a tempo synchronized ping pong delay. And that composite signal, dry and delayed, is then fed into two reverbs. One, a plate, and another, a hall reverb. If you want to connect any of the controls to a MIDI CC, right-click on it or control and click on it. Click on Learn MIDI CC Combinations, and then move the control. For example, here I'm twiggling the mod wheel. If you want to see your list of automated parameters, come up to the sidebar here, click on the Automation tab, and here you can see CC1 is connected to that. Now, you can actually pick any of these CCs up. Let's grab CC9 and just drop it on a control. You see I get that plus icon. Well, now that is completely assigned. Now, whilst we're talking about the left pane, just in case you're ever wondering why our products never appear in this list, it's because all of the ones in this list are encoded by Native Instruments, and they tend to be much more expensive than our ideal price point. We don't think that's massively fair for producers, so we want to try and keep the prices at the same level as our DAW products. And if we were to encode with Native Instruments and put them in here, that would not be possible. Our Kontakt libraries would more than double in price. So this is why we've got everything installed in Kontakt's Quick Load, which you can toggle on and off using the View pane or the View tab just at the top here. We've got an entire video showing you how to get your F9 libraries into Quick Load. It's a great system and really handy for zipping through things that you need to get to all of the time. Here's another example built around one of my favorite patches, the Butter Upright Piano. Just a quick scan through the rack. As you can see, I've only used basic balancing EQ just to thin a few things out, a little bit of sidechain and some automation. And talking of the automation, if we hit the automation tab on Kontakt here, you'll see that every instrument has a whole ton of these GUI parameters attached to automation lanes. Not only that, we've named them in such a fashion that they don't disappear off to the end of the list. In Logic, they are at the top of the automation parameter list. I quickly want to solo two parts here. The first one is called Big Blue. And as you can see from that MIDI part, it is a chord, but I've spread the notes over time. That's a great way to use these patches because then you can do the same on a similar sounding patch, play a slightly different chord and spread even further, which is what I'm doing here with an infinity pool. Piece them both together. Now with Infinity Pool, if you look carefully, you can see the stereo width is being modulated by an LFO. Nearly all DAWs now have LFOs inside that allow you to change plugin parameters, and changing the width of a stereo patch over time can be incredibly useful, especially on sound libraries like this where everything is quite big and wide. One of the tricks I'm really passionate about is changing the stereo width as well as the pan positions of elements of your mix. Bring a few things in width and then pan them about and then take a few things out. On our GUI for Nautilus, the center position means no change in the stereo field. Bring it to the left, bring it in a little bit, bring it to the right. And if we go the other way, anything to the right of 12 o'clock, you're starting to get into pseudo stereo territory. You see, it can add some really stunning beauty around those chord changes. And once again, I'm using some modulated textures. Here's the grunge. Very subtle, and then there's a low note in the background. And once again, I'm really playing that in with the modulation wheel so that it feels natural whilst I'm doing it. Very simple to do, very powerful. That's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you get as much enjoyment out of Nautilus as we did making it. As always, please keep an eye on our webpage. We've got some really exciting information coming up soon, particularly if you're a Serum 2 user. I wish you all the best from my family to yours in these increasingly uncertain times. And remember, it never rains forever.